You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is time for the Thursday edition of everyone's favorite bi-weekly source for all things options related. Yes, it is time once again for a little bit of the old OB. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. Hope you're having a good start to your trading week. Actually, we're kind of coming into the tail end of it now, so I hope you've been having a pretty decent trading week. It's been another one of those, shall we say, interesting weeks. If you don't like where the market's heading, just wait 5 minutes out there. That's kind of what we're living through again today. I see the folks in the live chat are already at it, talking about some fun trades. Yeah, they were talking about some fun trades yesterday. Looks like a lot of them worked out, so glad to hear it out there. If you want to join that conversation over there in the pro, also get access to Options Oddities. Little birdie telling me, going to be joined by the Oracle of New Hampshire tomorrow for Options Oddities. Always a banger when he joins us on their wild calendars for days. So strap in, listeners. Only place you can get that, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. As we learn who's joining us on the old Option Block program today, we will be joined a little bit later by our good buddy, the Flowmaster, a.k.a. Mr. Henry Schwartz from Cboe. I think he's still sleeping off a wine and baguette hangover from his trip to Gay Paris earlier this week, so he'll be joining us in a little bit. But we are joined right now by the major domo of St. Charles. He's not really the mayor, but he kind of is like the mayor of St. Charles, none other than Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. How go things in your domain, sir?
Hey, it's St. Charles. How can it possibly be bad?
Honest talk, real talk here, sir. When's the last time you hit Skippy zeros and lemonade?
It's been a couple years.
And you call yourself the mayor of St. Charles. That's like the staple food of St. Charles, and you haven't had it in 3 years. My goodness, man. Just for shame. As we keep on rolling. Let's see if we can.
I would disagree with your assessment of our town's food with that
is
regard.
The height of culinary delights. In one hand, you got a Skippy Zero. The other hand, a Costco dog. And you've done the scenic tour of St. Charles. I should know because I've done it. As we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there. And it's another one of those days, I would say it's not quite as whipsawy as we have seen in the past. So maybe when I said earlier, just wait 5 minutes, we're not quite as much in that zone. You know, in the past few weeks, we've seen, just every few minutes we're whipping and sawing all over the place. Lately, the markets have been doing a little bit more trending in one direction. That said, it did seem like we topped out earlier today. Of course, we're getting a lift on the back of some good earnings. We'll get to some of those numbers in a little bit. But Microsoft and good old Meta, the two M tech names, crushing it last night. The market liking that, even if the broad macro picture is still a little cloudy out there. All that lead into a rally in the S&P. S&P right around 56 and a quarter as we're kicking off the show. It puts it up almost a full percent. Dow up about 0.5%. NASDAQ getting the bit in its teeth, up 1.9%. That said, all the major indices are off their highs for the day. S&P got up to almost 56.60, it looks like, before selling back off to about 56.15. Now rallying a little bit again. So there has been a little bit of whipping and sawing out there. Not quite as dramatic as we've seen, where we're flipping hundreds of handles in the seeming span of just a few minutes out there. But nonetheless, in a normal market, this would probably be considered pretty wild. But that's where we are right now, listeners. Such things are tame. Such things are a day that ends in Y to us grizzled veterans of these wild markets. Coming into the start of the show, listeners, we've got VIX cash right around a 24 and a quarter. That puts it down about exactly 2 points when we kicked off the show. It's actually ticked up a little bit since then, up to about 24 and a third. So down a little less than 2 points, actually, from where we were on the Monday show. And our old pal VVIX, a.k.a. the vol of vol itself, down about 6 points from where it was this time last week. All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, the Flowmaster, still sleeping it off from his trip to gay Paris, sir. So the floor is yours to extol upon whatever you like, sir. What is catching your eye out there? And if you want to defend St. Charles cuisine, I wouldn't hold it against you, even though I might vehemently disagree.
Okay, you need to come downtown. We have a lot of amazing restaurants downtown.
Oh, you mean the barn in the field? Is that downtown?
No, it's not down. That's not the barn in the field. We are host to many things here in beautiful, lovely, scenic St. Charles. You realize that probably 90% of the Option Block listeners are from St. Charles. We all stop the town every day from noon to 1, or I'm sorry, on Mondays and Thursdays from noon to 1. We have Option Block listening parties. So don't insult your audience, Mark.
If that is true, I demand one day to get some sort of remuneration from Skippy Zeros and Lemonade. I have plugged them more on this network over the years than almost any other sponsor that has never paid us anything. So I need at least a free year.
What's ironic is that Skippy's has most of their locations outside of St. Charles. South Elgin's the one that I think I've maybe been to the one that you go to maybe once or twice. I've gone to the South Elgin one more than the one that you go to.
It's the only one that exists to me, sir. St. Charles or bust, I say. Clearly, you are not a true patriot son of St. Charles, sir. We don't cross that line.
I am a true patriot son of St. Charles. I've defended them. I've taken my group of St. Charles to take on the Mount Carmel caravan in your neck of the woods. I'm a true patriot of St. Charles.
Good luck to that one. That's a rough ride, sir.
Yes, it was. No doubt about it. But speaking of rough rides, I'm trying to get into touch with my inner Mark Longo with my transition. Speaking of rough rides, today has not been a rough ride in the marketplace. Microsoft did have amazing earnings yesterday, apparently. The market liked them. So Microsoft is actually up at 436 at one point today, up roughly almost 10%. I think it was up over 10%. Right now it's up about 8.5% on the day at 428. So Microsoft is definitely the big dog of the day in terms of the earnings winners. Apple is actually having a special earnings announcement here in about a half hour, actually during markets. So that's going to be something that'll be fun to see during the show. So we have that happening. S&P above the 5,600 mark. For a while today, we were at, I'm showing the high of the day, 56.58. We're at 56.31 right now. So not quite at the highs of the day, but still moving pretty well in the bullish direction. One thing that I think is kind of interesting on the day today is that the VIX is not coming off that much. So in other words, the VIX is down 46 cents on the day at 24.24, down just under 2% on the day. And for a large move in the S&P 500, that's not a lot of downward movement in the VIX. So kind of makes you think, and I'm definitely sticking to my short-term cautious side in my thing that I've said for many years on this show, being long-term bullish, short-term cautious. Definitely like the upward runs, but I think we need to kind of be tread with caution with this market uptick with which we are having today. In terms of some stocks that are making some big moves on the day, we have, like you had mentioned, not only Microsoft, but also Meta, aka Facebook. NVIDIA up over 4% on the day. It's catching up to Palantir for our poll that we had of NVIDIA versus Palantir. Palantir is relatively flat on the day at 118, but they're still well ahead of NVIDIA, who's at 113 after a 4% move on the day today. So that's also something of interest as well. And then with what we have in the sector world, the big sector today, surprise, surprise, technology. Nothing too crazy there. Healthcare is kind of dragging down the markets today, down 2% on the day. Just looking at XLV, the ETF that tracks the healthcare sector. So if anything, that's the one thing that's dragging this market down. I think that all eyes are going to be on Apple with their earnings that are coming out today here in about a half hour. And we'll see where we go from there.
We shall see where we go, indeed, listeners. I'm looking at our folks in the chat here. They're all talking about Skippy's Gyros and Lemonade there, Mr. Meister. There you go. I'm getting more customers for them as we speak. Have they ever even sent me a free gyro, Uncle Mike, or even, dare I say it, a glass of lemonade? The answer is no. So when I saw them this past weekend, I drove past them. I will say I did not stop at them. For that reason, they have not supported us it's not been a reciprocal relationship. It's been very, dare I say it, parasitic, Uncle Mike. They're just feeding off our network constantly. So you know what? Until we get some free lemonade and gyros in the studio, I might have to stop talking about Skippies. But our chat clearly down for it, so they'll probably be kicking down the doors of the St. Charles, or perhaps even, dare I say it, the Elgin one, which we all know doesn't exist. You know what doesn't exist on the show right now, listeners? The Flowmaster. He's having issues out there today. So we'll keep rolling. We'll see if we can get him on. Maybe a little bit later. The second he told me he was going to Paris earlier this week, I kind of penciled in that he might not make it to the show. It's a lot to ask to get back from Gay Paris, recover from all the delicious wine, and of course, tasty baguettes, and then make it onto the show on Thursday. And I know the Flowmaster probably enjoyed himself while out there. So we shall see. We shall also see what's lighting it up out here in the markets today, listeners. And I will say one thing that is kind of refreshing right now, listeners, is that VIX seems like it's waking up a little bit ahead of schedule. Lately, it's been sleeping well past noon, sleeping to 1, maybe even 2 p.m. before it decides to put up any kind of numbers. barely making 200,000 contracts sometimes by this part of the show. Today, closing in on 500,000, 448 on the tape right now. That is respectable, especially given what VIX has been up to late, and also given the fact that the ADV's just a tick north of 1 million. So we're close to halfway there. So that's kind of more in the ballpark of what we expect these days. By the way, if you're wondering, the big dog today, 30,000 of the June 40s, including a block of 24,500 for $1.10. Might be a fun flash poll to engage with the people a little bit later. $1.10 June 40s, listeners. Are you a buyer or seller at that price, listener? It might be kind of fun. We'll put it out to the audience. You folks listening at home will be able to play too. We'll make it a one-day flash poll so you folks can play. And then, you like those? That's the big dog out there in VIX land today. 40 strike. Is that a relevant one, or are you overwriting that all day and taking that $1.10 to live to fight another day? Again, in this market, June 18th seems like an eternity, but you never know. All we know is that VIX is kind of waking up a little bit out there today, which is good to see. Is SPY following suit? Is SPY fairly active? The answer is yes. SPY putting up some numbers as well. 6.11 million out there, listeners. The ADV, 11.3 million. Let's do our dance just for fun, listeners. Top 20. What are we seeing out here? Are we seeing 20 for 20? The answer is yes. Oh, no, I take it back. Number 19 on the top 20 most actives in SPY is the 560 put expiring tomorrow. Outside of that, everything's going away today. The big dog in SPY today, over 250,000 of the 562 calls. Fascinating, the strikes that just dominating the tape, followed by number 2, the 565 calls. Those two together, pretty much 500,000 contracts already. So serious zero-day paper going up out there, which again is what you expect in these wild whipsaw-y, dare I say it, markets, even if we're not quite as whipsaw-y as we have been in the past. Let's go out to the S, 2 million contracts on the tape for the S out there right now, listeners. And what do we have? 3.85 million, that is the ADV. And we'll do the same dance just for fun, just to be even Steven out here, as my mom always said. And yeah, 20 for 20, listeners. All 0 day, all the time. So the rumors of the death of 0 day are not just greatly exaggerated, but completely dead. The big dog out here today in the S, the 56 halves. Now that makes a little more sense. A little bit more of a round number level out there. 45,000 of those bad boys compared to the effectively 5620, the 562 calls in SPY. So interesting what levels dominate the tape. Small caps, IWM. We didn't do our check-in on IWM, so let's do that now, listeners. Small caps up 0.85% today, so having a good little day. Also putting up 1.01 million contracts, so small caps looking robust out there today. And lest us not forget our old pal, the Qs, 3.25 million. The Qs are going to be putting up hot numbers during Mega Tech Week, and that's pretty much what we're seeing. 3.25 million already, the ADV 4.88. Yeah, we're going to get there today. Are the Qs as dominated by 0 day as just about everything else under the sun, listeners? Let's see. We've got, looks like 1, 2, so 18 for 20, listeners, going the way of the dodo. If you wonder what the big dog is today, it is the 485 call. 132,000 of those bad boys. We're close to that right now. 484.71 are where the Qs are hanging out right now. So interesting stuff in the Qs. Is it also interesting in the single names? Is it a banger day? You know what? It is big mega earnings week out there. A lot of the Mag 7 popping off this week. So people probably going to sit up and take notice, and that is being reflected in the numbers. Finally, listeners, finally, we are back north of 300K to break into the top 10. Now, we're not north of 350, let alone 400, or even threatening 450, which I would consider to be an absolute banger. But 300,000, 306 to be precise, nothing to sneeze at these days. That gets us to our old pal SMCI. I know some of our chat listeners were talking about yesterday in the pro chat about selling the 26 puts. Looks like those worked out pretty well. I think they said they're already covering them. Yeah, they're covering some of those as well. So that looks like a good do, as the kids say. 33.42 today, up about $1.50 or nearly 5%. Nice little lift for SMCI after screwing the pooch yesterday. They came off hard yesterday. They sold off to $29.05 from about 36, almost $37. So they have rallied about $4.50 back from their nadir just yesterday. So interesting stuff out there. Number 10, SMCI. Number 9, out to Hood. Another one that our chat was talking about selling puts on yesterday. I believe they were the weekly 40 puts ahead of the earnings, and the earnings were decent. Stock's off $1 today, 48.08. Still looks like those 40 puts going to be pretty good, unless we see a pretty aggressive turnaround in Robinhood by tomorrow. That said, I think more than a few of you wouldn't mind taking some stock around that level anyway. So 494,000 contracts on the tape for Robinhood. Let's just check. We don't get a chance to talk Robinhood very often here on the show. Let's see. What is the big dog out here in Hood today? Is it calls? Is it puts? It's the 50 calls expiring tomorrow. 42,000 of those bad boys going up. As of right now, those look like probably a bit of a bridge too far, but we shall see. They traded as high as, looks like, $1.40. Ooh, probably going to be a bit of an ouchie. Looks like they got as low as wherever they're trading right now, probably. Oh, no, 205 they traded as high as. Ooh, and we see some 38 cents, 36 cents. I kind of got the feeling whatever you paid for these is probably going to end up being too much, but I don't know. Perhaps you folks disagree. Perhaps you want to load up on all these 50s by tomorrow. I was kind of surprised. I mean, there was a good number out there, but I was kind of surprised at some of the price. Just given the fact that no one can really give any guidance right now, it's kind of hard to see these aggressive trends. Even the names that beat, like we're going to talk about in a little bit, how can you give any guidance? And kind of weird to be rallying the stock in this environment, but nonetheless, or crushing it too aggressively. But nonetheless, Hood, number 9, 494 on the tape for Hood. So number 8, we're already north of 500,000. So now we're getting pretty active. Now we're getting back to the go-go days. It's Uncle Mike's favorite. It's Palantir, the current winner of our Palantir versus NVIDIA Battle Royale. That said, there was no winner. You both came in at exactly 50%. I've never seen our audience as evenly split as that. That was fascinating. Palantir today, 119.19, up 75 cents. They've had a range of about 117.11 to the downside, 120.19 to the upside. So a little over $3, $3.08 range on the day. Good for number 8, 502 on the tape for Palantir. Number 7, the Amazonians, pretty much 190, up $5.50 out there. They're after the bell today, the Amazonians, so looks like a lot of optimism maybe baked into that number. Number 7, 564 on the tape. That said, there's so much uncertainty even there, just the back and forth on whether they should price in the tariffs or not and display it to the end user. A lot of political nonsense gumming up the works, listener. Number 7, 564. Number 6, another A tech name, is the Fruit Company, also popping off after the bell. Don't believe Uncle Mike's lies. It is not mid-show, listeners. It is after the bell today. It is the Fruit Company. Number 6, 575 on the tape. 212.5 right now for the Fruit Company. Number 5, the Monster. Is it monstrous today? Looking a little bit bigger today. Filing up those teeth, growling at you. 396.12, up $16 exactly, or about 4.25%. So a nice little pop for the Monster today. Number 5, 631, keeping it in M tech names, or just M names in general. I don't know how techie MicroStrategy really is, even though they claim to be. But number 4, it's Meta, listeners. 758 on the tape, 574.86, up 25.86. Excuse me, nearly 5%. Popping hard today. Stronger than expected revenue, a good number. I mean, they're not really importing a lot of big hardware or things from China. They're not as buffeted by these wins out there. It's all bits at the end of the day for them mostly, but still, a weak economy would soften demand for a lot of their services, you would think. But c'est la vie. Number 4, Meta. Number 3, keeping it in M tech names, it's Microsoft. Another one, 429.37, up $34.11, or 8 2/3% today. This puts them now up 2.5% year to date after being down pretty aggressively. They got down to 354. It looks actually 344 on April 8th. So they've had a nice little resurgence since then. Number 3, it's good old Microsoft. Number 2, Tesla, 284.5, up 250. Seemed like they surprised a lot of people. I'm not sure who would be surprised by this. Their CEO has been off doing other things for ages. Kind of seems responsible to look for another CEO. Yet the news leaking that they are doing a CEO search, and that apparently spooked a lot of Tesla investors. This stock obviously caught up in the cult of Musk. So number 2 for them today. They're actually rallying up 2 1/3. Tesla 1.5 million contracts, and the big dog back again today. It's Nvidia 2.87 million, 113.70, up for almost $5 on the day today. So a nice little pop for them. Still low, as Uncle Mike pointed out, still below our buddy Palantir. So if you did your gun to the head, Mike, I should say Nvidia right now, you're losing that battle. But then again, we shall see. Things are hot, earnings are hot, but you know what else is hot? It's the Flowmaster's burgundy and baguette hangover, as he is back now from Gay Paris. Mr. Flowmaster, how was your trip, sir?
Ah, bonjour, Mark. C'était parfait. It was a very, very nice trip to Paris. We hosted a derivatives workshop where we met with some of the kind of top French firms and the quants. And I mean, it's always the French quants that are the deepest into the options business. But it was a great event, and Paris sure is a nice place to visit.
What was the hot thing with the French quants? What do they want to know about with SPX and VIX and all that fun?
I covered a lot on kind of the 0-day activity and where we see this flow coming from and how it differs from the activity in the rest of SPX. We also got into they're big into dispersion and variance swaps and kind of some of the more exotics. So we also spent time on that and just kind of going through even some of the things on the drawing board at Cboe, dispersion based actual tradable products, which definitely resonated with that audience.
Ah, the French love of all things VIX and SPX, as inexplicable as their baguettes in Burgundy are tasty, sir. That said, sir, what's catching your eye out there in another wild week in the markets?
It's a wild week. I mean, I'll tell you, it's I don't know. I'm sure it'll jinx everything, but it really feels like sentiment has come back into a full-on, risk-on mode. We're nowhere near the highs that we were at, but we are well off of the lows. It's year to date we're only down 4% now in the S&P. Nasdaq's down a little bit more than that, but we're looking at VIX back well below 24. Where we're today, we're at 2418. So I mean, we the fear has really subsided. These rallies have helped. I think there's a lot of people that are still kind of nervous, but at the same time, it seems like the worst is behind us for the moment. I wouldn't count on it too much. I think that I think as we've bounced back, I think a lot of smart traders are kind of adjusting their positions, maybe kind of looking for the best hedges that they can find, just because it's probably going to stay volatile. But it really does feel like the pendulum has come back the other way. So I was just compiling some monthly stats and some annual stats, ahead of OIC, where we'll be hanging out next week. April was the 7th month in a row over 1 billion contracts. I kind of feel like we're never going to see another month of under 1 billion contracts, just the way that this market has marched along. We've traded 1.2 billion last month. Basically it's interesting. ETF volume was kind of the bright spot. ETF option volume last month was really where the growth was. The index and single stock was relatively flat versus the month before. So, that's, we see that, right? When we go into these, big volatility events, people rush for the index products and the ETF products because correlations spike and they just care about the overall picture. They're not picking their stocks. But, as we've come back, I think over the last week or two, people are kind of back to picking, and it also helps that we're back into earnings, right? So, there's plenty of single stock kind of opportunistic trading taking place now, but it's just it's been a heck of a month, that's for sure. And now we'll see how things go as we get into, we made it past the first 100 days of this new administration, right? So we'll see what changes as we continue.
As we continue with the show, listeners, it is indeed earnings season, listeners. Hot off the docket here with the earnings move results and earnings season reports. Big names popping off, as we said this week. Monday, the biggest of them all, probably. Domino's, the pizza. I mean, you can't get bigger than Pizza Vol, right? Tuesday, we had SoFi, we had UPS, JetBlue, Coca-Cola, Pfizer, Spotify, Visa, good old S-Bucks, spoiler alert, coffee still pricey, Starbucks numbers in the toilet. They try to bait and switch with, we improved order speed. You can't improve on coffee going through the roof year after year. That's your main component. That's a hard one. And then Wednesday, we had Caterpillar and some name called Microsoft we just talked about, some other name called Meta we just talked about, also another name called Robinhood we just talked about, as well as Qualcomm. Today, we've got Eli Lilly, good old Roblox. Might be coming back to them in a little bit. CVS, MasterCard, Sirius, Mickey D's, Shake Shack, the A tech names of Amazon and Apple. Is Airbnb really a tech name? I mean, they probably sell themselves as that, but they're just, reselling your house, effectively renting it out. Is that a tech name? Was WeWork a tech name? They tried to sell themselves as a tech name to get a tech multiple, right? But it was just re-renting office space. Kind of the same thing with Airbnb. Reddit, MicroStrategy, good old monster, and Roku. Remember, they used to be a hot name. They used to be on our top 10. Seems like a little while ago now, but Roku used to be a big driver. Not so much these days. And then tomorrow we've got Exxon and Chevron and Wendy's. If you're wondering how all these bad boys playing out, luckily for you, we got the data for you free. TheOptionsInsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab, and you too can be sucked down the rabbit hole. That is awesome. Free earnings vol data. Microsoft, of course, they were at $395 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 4.4%. Guess what? They blew the doors off. As of this morning, this report was run, they had moved 9.1%. Obviously, that number has changed. A bit of a moving target out there right now. Qualcomm, they were yesterday after the bell as well. Didn't really talk about them yet. They were pricing in 8%. They were at 148 and about a half, and they ended up, they're pricing in 6.5%. They delivered about 8%, but they were kind of moving in the wrong direction, selling off out there on the Qualcomm front. So many here. Listen, this is a robust report, to put it mild. I can't believe we give you this for free. We must like you. Let's go out to Meta. 549 is where they were going into their announcement. Spoiler alert, they beat their number, but guess what? They were pricing in 7.3%. As of this report, they had actually underperformed, which is kind of interesting. Only about 5.2%, and they're down to 4.6% now. So from a pure vol perspective, they actually underperform, which is kind of a thing we've been talking about for a while on these reports. So much outperformance, month after month, cycle after cycle. Can it last forever? Maybe this is the pin that pops the balloon finally out there. Let's go out to drugs. Let's go out to Moderna. Today before the bell, 28.5 is where they were. They were pricing in 9.2%. They delivered 4.5%. So interesting developments out there as well for Moderna. And they're still at about 4.5% right now. Our old buddy Robinhood, 49.11 is where they were going into their announcement. They were pricing in, get this, nearly 11%. I think our pro members were onto something when they decided to harvest a little bit of that old risk premium, because they are dramatically underperforming that. They had only moved about 4.5% when we ran this report. That is down to 3.8% right now. So harvesting the preem is truly living the dream out there in Robinhood right now. Mickey D's today before the bell as well. They were at almost 320, 319 and 2/3 going into their announcement. They were before the bell today. They were pricing in 3.2%. Another one. It's kind of hard to sell a 3.2% straddle, but they're only delivered about 1.3%. And as of right now, it's only 0.8%. So if you sold that, I guess you're doing all right. Roblox today before the bell as well. They were at 67, pretty much even going into their announcement. They were pricing in a juicy, a hefty, some might say a ridiculous 12%, listeners. And as of this report, they had only delivered 4.2%. So another one. Selling the preem, living the dream, listeners. Is this the beginning of the worm turning on the great earnings vol bubble we've all been living through together? Apple, really quickly after the bell, they were at 212.5 when we ran this report. They were pricing in 9.25 in that straddle. In the past, they've moved 640. And the Amazonians also after the bell today, 184 and about a half when we ran this report. They were pricing in 1161. In the past, they've moved $13.50. So pricing in extra juice in Apple, quite a bit of extra juice, about 50%. and pricing in less juice in the Amazonians, which is also kind of fascinating. We have more we can do, listeners. We got to get odd out here. Check it out for yourselves again. But now it's time for us to keep on rolling, to get weird and get wild. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. Time to get weird. Time to get wild. Time to see if the Flowmaster has recovered from his trip to Gay Paris. Let's kick things off in a name we haven't talked about in a while. Used to be a frequent offender, dare I say it, a staple on the Odd Block. It's our old pal Bumble. And then I see what the price is of the stock, and I probably realize why we haven't talked about it in a while. Bumble right now, $4.38. Up 17 cents, or nearly 4% for them today. So a nice little run for them today. But on the year, you know the deal with Bumble. It's been a bit of apocalypse out there. They're off nearly $6, or nearly 60% on the year. Year to date, they're down about 45%, or about $3.60. So it's been a rough year. And if you remember, all of the flow we were talking about on the Odd Block for years now have been size put sellers. So if they've maintained that strategy this year, they've either been run over aggressively or they now own a sizable portion of the company because they have had a lot of stock put to them. I remember in the past, they were pretty deft at picking strikes and rolling and not really getting run over. I think they only got bit a couple of times, as I recall, out there. So we kind of marveled at their agility on the put writing side. That said, when the stock's just getting annihilated, it's kind of hard to be that agile with it. But that said, Mr. Flowmaster, you're bringing Bumble back on our tape. Is it more size put writing? What do we got in store for us today?
No, this is kind of interesting, and they have earnings next week, I believe. And what hit my radar were a bunch of call buys, like cheapos. So the May 9th 5-strike calls, like, as you said, stocks around 438. So right on the open, within 30 seconds of the start of the day, we saw 1,100 bought for 15 cents. Stock was 429, and then then somebody, probably the same buyer, paid 20 cents for another 1,100 just 5 minutes later, and then after 11 a.m. when the stock was up at 447, so stock did lift into it, another 1,100. So we're actually up to almost 9,000 on the day. It is opening. It's going to get them earnings, which are just a couple of days before these expire. I mean, 5-strike, I don't know. I don't know if there's some other possible catalyst. I do remember us talking about the put bomber coming into this name over and over. We kind of, felt it was a little bit of like a Buffett style trade where maybe they really were comfortable just, taking the company for a while. But it actually also kind of, I actually noticed some heavy call buying in Match Group as well. So, same industry, and it also has earnings next week. So in Match Group, it's even kind of larger. So Match Group, we got 36,000 calls versus 1,200 puts. So that's like 15 times the normal call volume. In Bumble, it's 12,000 calls, which is 15 times the average call volume. So kind of very similar in both. I don't know. I mean, I think it feels to me like somebody's actually looking for a kind of a nice upside surprise, maybe from one or both of them next week. I mean, for Bumble, I probably, I don't know if I trade the options. I'd probably just, leg into a little bit of stock.
So what you're saying, Mr. Flowmaster, is someone is trying to corner the upside market on online love. As I recall, Match Group pretty much owns everything out there, and then Bumble is the rest of it. So if you're buying upside in both Bumble and Match, you kind of got the online love market covered. It seems like somebody, maybe there's a correlation between hard times and hard economic times, Mr. Flowmaster, and spicy online love. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, Valentine's Day is long behind us, so I don't know what else it could be.
Let's find out here. Listen, are you down for that? You think it's time to corner the market on online love? Hit us up. Let us know, listeners. You like these Match and Bumble calls? I can't remember the last time you talked about Bumble calls out there, listeners. 12,000 of them. Expiring on the 9th, so they're not messing about, as the kids say out there. Again, we probably have earnings in the offing. Let's see, what is the date for Bumble? Is the 7th, so you are getting them. You are getting them in Bumble, and you probably are, let's see, on the 8th in Match Group. So if you're going out to the 9th, you're getting earnings in both, listeners. There you go. Is this the time for a resurgence of online love? I guess stranger things have happened out there, listeners. Also strange that someone's buying the puts. I'm going to throw you under the bus, Mr. Flowmaster, because I haven't had a chance to keep an eye on Bumble for a bit. Have you noticed our old pal, the size put writer? Did he go out of business, or does he now own a ton of the company, sir? Because he probably had some stock put to him.
It's a good question, actually. I haven't kind of tried to track back. I do recall that they definitely expired a few in the money. I don't know. There's no super big downside positions out there now because there really aren't any strikes. There's actually, there may not be any strikes below the $5 level here. Let me just see. But I do not know if that person or asset manager is sitting on a nice big block of stock or not. But it's definitely going to be. I will definitely pay attention into earnings for this one. The stocks, actually, the strikes in Bumble do go down to 50 cents. So you could go trade the 50 cent.
I'll have to go look and see if there's size OI on the 50-cent strike. In which case, our friend is back with a vengeance, selling the 50-cent puts in Bumble. Listen, you like this? Listen, is it time to corner the market in online love? Somebody is clearly attempting to do just that. Interesting stuff. Now, Mr. Flowmaster, what if you said I followed up that talk of online love? Everything's nice, the birds and the bees, all happiness, sunshine and rainbows. What if I said I was going to give you the finger next, sir? Because that's where we're going. We're going out to Finger Motion Inc. Ticker symbol finger, FNGR. This is a tech name out of Singapore. I don't know exactly what type of fingering they're doing, but nonetheless, ticker symbol finger. Just maybe we are guilty on this one. The Rock Lobster accuses us of sometimes picking interesting tickers. This is definitely one of those. Also a name we have not discussed in the past, so it's always fun when we have a newcomer making it onto the network. Popping hard out there today, 261, up 36 cents or nearly 16%. So Finger Motion giving the finger to the Bears out there today. They're loving them. There's some upside. They got as high as 309 earlier today. So I don't know what's going on. They have some partnership. Are they a logistics name? They're a logistics name. The name is even more mind-boggling. It's akin to Wolf Speed, but I digress. Nothing's as good as Wolf Speed. On the year, it's been a rough year for Finger Motion. The market's given the finger to Finger Motion. That's not going to get old, listeners. $3.50 a year ago, they got up to 380 right around that same time, and then they just came for it. They crushed it down to about $1.69 in August, so the big meltdown of last year, they got carried down with it. Then they rallied it a bit. They got back up to $2.25 in December, and then literally fell off a cliff to $1.12, cut literally in half in the span of a couple of sessions. So clearly, bad earnings, bad announcement, whatever the case, not a good run for them. They kind of languished there for a while. And then just in the last few weeks, Finger Motion, giving the finger back to the Bears, rallying from $1.25 all the way up to over $3 today, 309. So just on the rampage. What did we spot out here, listeners, in Finger Motion? Well, first off, we saw a block of 3,000 of the Jan 5s. Yes, 5 calls going up for 55 cents. They got a market of 25 at 55, which makes sense. You are trading Finger after all. You're not trading Apple or Microsoft. They said we will trade 3,116 of those bad boys for 55 cents. If you're wondering, that is a 127 vol. The stock was pretty much right here, 267 when they put it up. Worth noting, they do have earnings that's on May 28th. You're going to get, obviously, a few announcements between now and Jan of next year. But then we also noticed right around the same time, Mr. Flowmaster, a block of 500 of the Jan 15s for a quarter. We thought, Jan 5 15s, can it be possible? We went digging some more, and sure enough, the total volume is eerily similar, about 3,100 of the Jan 5s against about 3,500 of the Jan 15s. So if you thought 5 was wild, listeners, I present to you the 15s for around 25 cents. Again, I don't know what this name does or why they're popping so hard today, but if you thought 5 was bonkers, someone says, hold my beer, we're going 3x that with the 15s. Is it a ratio? Is it a straight vertical? Madness afoot in the finger. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what are your thoughts, first off, on the straight 5s? Those are already crazy enough for 55 cents. And then to add a sprinkling, a dusting of madness, sir, what are your thoughts on 3,000 and change of the 15s for a quarter?
Yeah, I was just looking at that, and they might have been legging into a bit of a spread, but none of those 15s actually traded as part of a spread. Yeah, so it's a Chinese mobile data payments company. I don't know what to say about the 15s on a $2.60 stock. I'm actually looking at the Cboe open close data. It does show that it's basically customers selling and market makers buying on the 15s. So, maybe somebody that's, let me just see what it looks like on the 5s. 5s are market maker to market maker. So that's in the Jans. So, I don't know. It's an interesting one. I mean, you've priced options and vol skews for many years, and in a name where you're talking about a strike that's whatever that is, 600% out of the money kind of thing. Like, some people do put some pretty wacky vols into their curve, so you could just have a big difference of opinion going on, but it's a weird one. I mean, I suppose that even though volatility has calmed down a great deal, VIX back into the 24 range, I think that the stresses with China are still very, very real. So maybe it's somebody thinking, I don't know what they're thinking, actually.
I will say, if someone managed to find a 25-cent bid to hit on the 15 strike, then more power to them. You hit that bid all day long and twice on Sunday. That's I don't think they were able to sell it. They traded different prices, listeners, 20 cents and then some for 25 as well. But yeah, they went up in small blocks. But still, just why? I thought the 5s were crazy enough, Mr. Flowmaster. Then I saw the 15s going up and I said, oh, I know nothing about wild craziness in this name. So there you go, listeners. Again, it didn't go up as spread, as the Flowmaster said, but if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, going up around the same time, they're probably in some way related paper at the end of the day, so it might be worth keeping an eye on the finger. And if you, too, can find a 25-cent bid for the 15s, I encourage you to sell that against something, because that sounds like a good do. It's always fun, though. It's Thursday, a little bit of the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the all-star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, listeners, Mail Block. Normally we let you folks come on in, vent your spleen with questions and comments, anger at Skippy Zeros, all the fun. But you know what? Uncle Mike said the hell with all of that this week. He has elbowed all of you to the side because he has his own special listener question. Uncle Mike, since it's your question, I will let you lead the dance, and I'm sure the Flowmaster has some thoughts on this one. Have at it, Uncle Mike. Why don't you share it with us?
Okay, so I had a question from where we wanted to go in terms of implied volatility with the relationship to Vega itself. So I had a listener email in, how do price movements impact implied volatility based on their expiration dates? For example, I noted the near-term implied volatility is more impacted by price movements than the longer-term implied volatility. So sometimes the Vega doesn't capture this disparity. how and where can I learn more about it? And that is what I am giving to the experts to decipher today.
Ah, yes. The Uncle Mike clients always sending in fun questions here, talking about the discrepancy between near-term implied vol, which is really at the end of the day gamma, versus the longer-term stuff, which, as he points out, is Vega. But he also points out that he doesn't think Vega sufficiently captures that discrepancy. I'd love to see if you had some, again, details are always your friend with these questions, listeners. So if you have a specific name or trade, I'm assuming general, you're probably going to you're looking at broad indexes. You're probably talking maybe some near dated SPX versus some longer term. That's usually when people start talking about the Vega effect. That's kind of where they're lining up, and certainly a lot of action in the near dated portion of the S as well. And since we're talking near dated S, the Flowmaster just came back from talking to a whole bunch of Frenchmen about this exact topic. Mr. Flowmaster, we got Uncle Mike's client who's a little bit mystified on the different impacts of price movement on near-term implied vol, aka gamma, really. Again, he doesn't say how near-term he's getting. Could be 0 day. And then the longer-term stuff, he doesn't think Vega quite captures it, sir.
Well, this actually was on one of the slides that a quant from UBS presented, I believe, and the spot vol correlation, right? The connection between, where's the market going and what is the volatility doing is a huge topic for traders. He actually pointed out that it's a very nonlinear relationship. So, and it also has a lot to do with where VIX already is, right? So, we talk about those weird days where, the market's up, but vol's up, right? Those are unusual, but they happen. Same thing on the other end. You can have the market go down and volatility does not. So in terms of super short dated versus the longer dated, actually Mandy Zhu, my colleague, just put out something on how kind of as volatility really got shocked at the beginning of April, and it was kind of not due to a very short term situation. It was a little bit more of like, okay, the market digesting policy and what the impact's going to be. That not only did we see the explosion in index volume in April was really in the longer dated contracts, not so much in the 0 day. That was basically kind of static. So it has a lot to do with why the market's moving and also kind of how extreme the market's behaving. And then one other thing that I will try to get a post put together on is Ed Tom, who's also on my market intelligence team, has done some very cool VIX change attribution analysis. So on a day like today, where the VIX is down just a third of a point, where's that actually coming from? Is it at the money vol that's not that's down a little bit, or maybe at the money vol it's actually up a notch, but the skewness has changed? And so dividing basically the changes in the inputs into the change in VIX itself is really interesting, because you can kind of see on certain days it may be just the far out of the money tails that change shape, right? So if there's all of a sudden a lot of demand for 5 delta puts, even maybe though the at the money vol hasn't there's no change there, that's going to make the VIX lift. So it's a great, I encourage the writer to just dig into it and consume as much data as you possibly can. And, you'll find some really interesting things like, on average, VIX moves about a point for every percent in SPX. So if SPX goes down 1%, you kind of expect VIX to go up a point, but it absolutely falls apart a lot of the time because of the fact that the moves are different. And so that might be kind of one of the golden questions in the industry, is really what's the relationship and what's the right relationship between vol and the underlying movement.
How did I know you'd have a slide from a French quant in your back pocket about this exact topic? So we call you the Flowmaster at the end of the day. So, listener, again, we're assuming you're talking about VIX and SPX. If you're talking about some other underlying you happen to notice this in, or a specific trade that caught your eye, send us details. Details are always your friend at the end of the day. As we keep on rolling, it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, coming into the end of the show, we're pretty much hanging out pretty close to where we were at the start of the show. S&P up about 1%, NASDAQ up about 2%, Dow up about 0.5%. VIX cash closing in on 24.5, about 24.45 right now. That said, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until the Monday show? And also, how much trivia prep are you doing over the weekend to try to close the gap, sir?
I don't take that contest very seriously, so I mean it's just a fun thing. It's really not for me. I mean, I don't know why you guys make such a big deal of it.
Says the man who has trivia champion emblazoned on the walls of his office.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. But with that being said, yeah, definitely watching earnings on the fruit company tonight. For those of you that don't understand, that want to know a little bit more about why Mark and I disagree on times for Apple earnings, look up some of the shows between episodes 100 and 200 if you want to hear some very good intellect as to the time with which Apple has their earnings. With that being said, watching Apple earnings tonight after the market, wanting to see if we can get a little bit of a continuance from where we are rallying from today. Markets might be a little bit long in the tooth based upon where they've been going lately. So I think Apple's going to be a good barometer. We're having a little bit of a sell-off right now in bonds. So watching bonds, earnings, and social media, because there's a certain someone that might tweet something and things could change at the drop of a hat.
I don't know what you could possibly be referring to. That music means we're coming up against it. Mr. Flowmaster, same question for you. What are you keeping an eye on until your next appearance next week, including cornering the market on love? And then B, where should folks go if they want more Cboe goodness in their lives?
Sure. Well, we do have employment tomorrow morning, so these numbers still have the possibility to move us around. So I'll be watching that. We're kind of in a very flat vol. We're not backwardated anymore, but we're still not really contango either. The earnings from Apple and some of these big guys, that'll keep things interesting too. Just kind of watching what's going on and looking forward to seeing you and a lot of people down at OIC next week, and to see what we have and kick the tires on any of our platforms or data. Just go to Cboe.com/RMA or just Cboe.com and look around, and you can find the market intelligence page. You can subscribe to our updates and see what we're up to.
Yeah, there's a chance we could do the show live in the same room next week. Are you going to be there on Thursday, sir?
I am. I think that'll work.
All right. Flowmaster and I in the same room. The heck with that Uncle Mike guy. In the meantime, if Uncle Mike wants to play or if folks want to reach out to you, Uncle Mike, where should they go? What should they do?
Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, and also check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you'd like to have a conversation with me. I always enjoy talking to any of our listeners.
Check them out, stcharleswealth.com. Doesn't sound like our pro members are down with cornering the upside on the love market online, but maybe you are, listeners. Hit us up, let us know. Are you down for a little Hunt Brothers-esque cornering of some markets in online love? Hit us up. Let us know. We're not done yet, though. We'll be back in a little bit with our good buddy Eric Norland. I haven't talked with him in ages, who handles all the research over there at CME Group. A lot of hot stuff they have coming down the pike, so we're going to get into all of that, all the latest breaking research on all the products you know and love. Coming up in a little bit. If you're hanging out in the pro, just stay tuned. We'll be back in a few minutes with Eric. And then back again tomorrow with a wild doubleheader. First off, Vol Views coming at you. It'll be myself. It'll be Dr. Vic's other special guests, including our good buddy, the creator of all the earnings data, Mr. Matt. You folks asked. You said, hey, it's hot earnings season. Can we hear from the guy who crunches the data? We got it for you coming tomorrow. He's going to be joining me for a doubleheader right after Vol Views. We're going straight into options oddities. You know it's always a banger when he joins me on that show. Only one place to get it, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. It's also May 1st. We got so busy today, we had to give away the Pro Trading Crate. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow as well. Lots of fun to be had as we keep on rolling into our next show, and then we'll see you back here on Monday. Another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.